This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview.
Well, I'm joined now by Gervase Williams, of course, Premier Miton. Really great to meet you in person. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. Nice to meet you, Mark.
Yes, well, I was listening to your discussion panel there. There was lots of interesting things talked about tax, etc. But one of the key things that stood out to me was you actually said, I think, that the AIM market, it's like we're still in flares, and when flares come back into fashion. So I wonder what you meant about that.
Well, actually, markets go in cycles. And we've been in an extraordinarily long cycle. It's globalization, of course, last 30 or 40 years. It's all been about, rapid growth, technology, scale. US wins on all of those things. US market's been sensational. But if you go back to the 70s, when actually flares were around, markets were pretty tough, cash was short, there was lots of inflation, technology companies were falling over all the time. Actually, it was the UK stocks which actually were outperforming. UK stock market was one of the best performing in the 70s and the 80s. And that's really what I'm saying. We're moving back to actually the conditions when strong companies with strong cash flow outperform.
So you think we're at that sort of stage now then? I mean, the cyclical nature certainly of markets, but certainly of mining companies is very, very real. Where perhaps do you think we are in the cyclical stage at the moment?
Well, the key issue is that inflation obviously came back after the COVID and the invasion of Ukraine. My view is that actually going forward, I think inflation will sometimes be too high, but also potentially too low. But during this period, actually, it's going to be pretty tough for all companies to make good money. The great advantage of many of the asset-based companies, these are companies which are capital intensive, this includes financials, it includes the energy stocks, it includes the mining stocks, is actually if you find that there's a shortage of certain assets and demand remains there, you can make disproportionate returns. Gold price, just look at it in the last year or two. Effectively, mining companies can make very strong returns. Lots of asset-rich companies. We're actually knee-deep in asset-rich companies in the UK market. I think it's a superb opportunity for the UK market to outperform.
Very difficult to call the bottom, but like you say, I mean, I've been investing since probably about 2013, watching stuff like this and then doing stuff like this for the last 5. Lots of people have been saying for a long time that the bottom's in the mining sector, the bottom's in, it can't get any worse. I mean, but I do sort of feel at the moment when you look at like gold outperforming, they look at uranium, look at tin, for example, you can actually start seeing now these commodities moving. Can we call the bottom yet?
I'm not sure. It could be the bottom. You won't know till afterwards, of course. And the truth is, we could still get a global recession. No one's expecting one now. But just right now would be a really inconvenient time for the metal prices, and they could go down further. So I won't say that we've passed the bottom in for certain in that case. Okay. But what I can say is actually many of those companies have been through a pretty tough time over recent years, and only the strong ones have survived. And past the bottom, a lot of the less strong ones will not survive, and the ones which remain strong will actually make disproportionate returns.
Yeah, and I know there was a question asked about what does it take to bring money back into the market. And you talked really about that no one puts money into the markets at the bottom, which is true. Most people probably buy at the top. It's the only market where people buy more when the sales are not on, effectively.
Yeah.
But you did say that you think the cash will come from small cap managers who are currently in mid caps, and they will start to sort of flow slowly into the micro. So why do you think at the minute that the fund managers are not going heavy into the small caps? Because I know at Premier Miton you are positioning in some of these micro stocks.
Yeah, the bottom line is actually that the last 10 and 20 years, actually the mid-cap index has done extremely well. Small-cap index has done fine, but mid-cap index has done even better. It's kept up with NASDAQ and all that kind of thing. Incredible. But going forward, of course, ultimately, the smaller the company, the better the performance. That's the small-cap effect. That's what will come through. And so many of the institutional investors will find that they start to lose position in the charts unless they move from mid-caps into small-caps and from small-caps into micro-caps. And, of course, they can't put the same unit size. You can't put 25 million into a 25 million pound company. Mm-hmm. So ultimately they have to buy more numerous holdings. It's going to be a slow process, but as they see these transactions where companies are raising a small amount of capital to make a transformational acquisition, they're going to say, me too, and they'll put half holdings, quarter holdings, tenth holdings. So it's not going to be something which they're looking forward to, but that's where the cash is going to come from. It's going to come from small cap investors migrating down the market cap range.
So do you see it, you don't see it as like a catalyst moment, you see it as a slowly the wheel gets turning, the wheel gets more motion, and slowly money moves into the small caps?
the money might be slow, but the share prices won't be. The whole point is that actually the markets are spiky. They spike down, but they spike up too. And I think past the bottom, as we move to the recovery of small microcaps, I wouldn't be surprised to see, a really quite extraordinary move over a couple of months once the small microcap just like that. And everyone say, well, what's happened? Well, there's no sellers. There weren't any sellers even at the original price. The only sellers were people who were distressed sellers who were having to sell because they'd had redemptions or whatever. And so actually, when you get net buyers, actually it's hard to find anyone who wants to sell even at 20 or 30, 40% up from the current share price.
So from your point of view at Premier Miton then, how are you sort of positioning your portfolio? Are you buying up a spread of miners at different stages, or a spread of even not just miners but sectors, tech, for example, pharma? What are you looking at on a daily basis?
Yeah, I mean, the key issue is the companies which are have invested for many years, perhaps, or concluding a period of investment, getting into cash payback. And you get this kind of big swing between companies where there's negative cash flow to not just positive cash flow, but actually can be very substantial positive cash flow. And so we've got a large number of holdings which we think are very well positioned. Yes, some mining companies. Yes, some financials. Yes, some technology stocks. But actually a huge range of companies. There's some manufacturing companies in there. Okay. There's certain companies which are in themselves almost unique in the products they serve. And it's just, you've got to have the extraordinary range. We would argue that you really have to have quite a large range, not just because it's great to get companies which do go up 50% and 100%, but actually just occasionally there is a company which doesn't just succeed, it succeeds just extraordinarily. It goes up 10 times, 20 times, and we'd like to think we've got some of those as well.
Good. And I mean, you said it in your speech there, in the panel there about companies that are going from pre-cash into cash flow effectively, and you've just sort of reiterated it there. I know you took part, or Premier Miton took part in the recent GGP funding, and of course that's got a huge gold resource there. You feel they're going to get into cash sort of fairly soon, do you? Cash flow positive?
Yeah, I mean, Greatland Gold. I mean, the point about their transaction was that actually it's already heavily invested by the, with the support of the large parent, which it was owned by previously. It was taken over. They said it was too small to be core any longer. There's nothing wrong with the mine at all. It is coming into production, and so yes, they raised $250 million, right? Even in this really distressed market. So what an impressive outcome is that? And yes, it'll take 18 months before it gets substantial cash flow, but that's where we're going from. Okay. A company. The whole point is they probably won't need another check. We've had the last check. And once you get the last check, then providing they get to the finishing post, you make a disproportionate return. Okay.
And then on the other side of it, I know Premier Miton's involved in Nosterterra Oil and Gas, which of course has been around for a long time. There's recent change of management there, and Paul Welch has been on Stockbox a few times. And I like what he was saying about sort of turning the new leaf. He wants to build the company. He's been involved with companies before, turning them around, getting into cash flow. And as we saw only this week, I think, wasn't it just yesterday, I interviewed Paul again. Of course, they got into cash flow. Yep. So again, what was the investment case for you on Nosterterra? And I mean, that's really small cap, isn't it? You've got Greatland Gold that really up here. Nosterterra is about $1 million.
That's right.
And they've now got revenue or profit of, I think, $2 million.
That's right.
US a year, yeah.
In the first half, yeah. So it kind of meant, I mean, the whole point is that some stocks literally get too cheap for people to buy. i.e., the market cap is so low that they can't get their £1 million holding. You can't get a £1 million holding in a £1 million company. And we don't mind that. If companies are too cheap for people to buy, well, we'll buy a small amount. And then if they go up 10 times and at 10 times the market cap, other people come in, then how awful is that for our clients?
Yeah, and is that the sort of thing, I mean, is that the sort of thing you'd be looking for there? Is it a real stab in the dark for you, just, I don't want to say play money as such, but it's almost like, we'll give this a go, or are you looking for the 10Xs?
It's not our capital, first of all. So we've absolutely, it's other people's money. So let's start, this is nothing is play money, right? But the whole point is, diversity of holdings is not a negative, it's a positive, right? Lots of people think they've got their best 40 holdings or best 36 holdings. The trouble is you lock out many of the best performing companies because they're too small for them to invest in. So have a long range, and yes, if you do the work and you do meet companies like Nosterterra, and basically they've got the right risk-reward ratio, and in the combination of the rest of the portfolio they add diversification, of course you invest in it. Okay, you're going to get a small amount in, but if it succeeds, and it succeeds disproportionately, it's good for all of our investors.
And what would be a disproportional succeeding for a company like that? Are we talking 2, 3, 4, 5 times?
Absolutely. But I mean, to be honest, 2, 3, 4 times is perfectly good enough, right? If it happens to go up 10 and 20 times, and we can't say it won't, but it's probably not very likely, then we'll get over that disappointment too.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, well, thank you very much for your time. It's really nice to meet you. Hopefully we can have you on Stockbox again and just really talk generally about the sector and some of the stocks that you hold at Premier Miton. But thank you for your time, Gervase, today.
Thank you very much, Mark.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programmes at stockboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.